Every long-running show lies to you. The good ones just lie on purpose. 7 seasons, 141 episodes. One family, one house, one town, and a writer's room, trying to keep 1,000 moving pieces consistent, while also serving a bigger master. A continuity Bible written by a completely different show years before this one existed. Young Sheldon was born owing debts to canon it didn't create. And under that kind of pressure, things break. So today we're doing the accounting. 10 plot holes, 10 places where Young Sheldon contradicts itself, contradicts its own timeline, or quietly hopes you weren't paying attention. Counted down from the small stuff every show gets wrong, to the big ones. The structural ones, the ones the writers didn't miss, the ones they chose. Because that's the real thesis of this video, and I want it on the table before we start. Almost none of these are mistakes. A mistake is a continuity error nobody caught. What you're about to see, over and over, is something else. A writer's room caught between two options, sacrificing consistency to save something they valued more. Every hole on this list has a body buried in it, and the body is always the same thing. Whatever the show decided mattered less that week. And the number one slot on this list, the biggest hole in the entire series, isn't a date, isn't a character, isn't a detail. It's something so large that once you see it, you'll realize the show wasn't hiding it at all. It was performing it, in front of you, for 7 years. We'll get there. Grab a seat at Cooper's house. Number 10. The town that won't hold still. Start small. Medford, Texas, the show's whole world, cannot decide what it is. Episode to episode, season to season, watch the town flex to fit whatever the story needs. When a plot needs small-town suffocation, everybody knows the Cooper's business. The church gossip travels same day. Medford is a fishbowl, with a population of about 12. When a plot needs a new character, a new store, a rival, a stranger, a whole institution nobody's ever mentioned, Medford suddenly has infinite depth, conjuring gyms, restaurants, businesses, and entire social scenes out of the Texas dust. Small hole. Every sitcom does it. But notice the shape of the sacrifice, because it repeats all the way up this list. Geography lost, story won. The writers decided, correctly, probably, that no viewer tunes in for municipal consistency. Medford isn't a place, it's a dial, and the writers turn it. Remember the dial, it gets bigger. Number 9. The vanishing classmates. Sheldon goes to high school with actual human beings. Early on, the show knows this. There are bullies with names, desk neighbors, recurring kids, a whole ecosystem of teenagers reacting to the 9-year-old in their midst. And then, gradually, silently, they evaporate. The ecosystem thins out until Sheldon essentially attends high school and later college, in a hallway of extras. People he saw daily, people who shaped entire early episodes, exit the series without a goodbye, an explanation, or a mention. Where did they go? Nowhere. That's the hole. The show simply stopped paying for them, narratively, and, let's be honest, literally. Sacrifice. The texture of a real world. Saved. Screen time for the family, which is where the show discovered its actual heart lived. It was the right call. It's still a hole. Both things are true. Get comfortable with that sentence, because this list runs on it. Number 8. The age math that never adds up. The twins are the same age. That's the one thing twins are. And yet, watch Missy and Sheldon across 7 seasons, and try to keep their shared age consistent with what's on screen. School years that don't line up. Maturity gaps that swing wildly, depending on what a scene needs. Missy, written years older when the show needs her wisdom, snapped back to little kid status when it needs her innocence. Grade levels, birthdays, timelines that bend around individual episodes, like light around a star. And it's not just the twins. Georgie's age does quiet gymnastics whenever his storyline needs him more adult or more kid. Season count versus school year count versus stated ages. The show's internal calendar is held together with tape. The sacrifice here is honest, at least. Real children grow at real speed, and actors grow faster than 7-year timelines. Every show with kids fights this war and loses. But the choice underneath is worth naming. The writers consistently spent chronology to buy emotion. Whenever a scene worked better with an older Missy or a younger Sheldon, the calendar blinked first. Emotion won every single tiebreaker in this series. Hold that thought. It's the skeleton key for the top of this list. Number 7. The genius with a floating skill set. Sheldon's abilities are supposed to be the fixed point of the whole franchise. The boy is a prodigy, full stop. So watch closely and explain this. The things Sheldon can and can't do float. Episode to episode. His social blindness deepens or lifts, depending on whether a scene needs him oblivious or needs him wounded. His practical incompetence, the boy who can't be left alone, can't handle daily life, mysteriously suspends whenever a plot needs him functional and independent. One week he can navigate a bureaucracy that would defeat an adult. The next, a doorknob is a challenge. That's not character growth. Growth moves in one direction. This is a dial, again. The writers tune Sheldon's capabilities scene by scene, sacrificing the consistency of the show's central character to make individual episodes land. Saved. Comedy and pathos. On demand. Lost. A stable answer to the most basic question a show can face. What exactly can our main character do? Number 6. The disappearing consequences. This one's structural, and once you see it, you can't stop seeing it. Big things happen in this show, and then don't. A family member's health crisis reshapes everyone's behavior for one episode, and then the fried food, and the beer, and the noise return with no one commenting. A financial catastrophe menaces the household and dissolves off-screen. A relationship-shattering fight detonates at dinner, and by next week, the table has amnesia. The show fires loaded guns constantly, and then quietly unloads them between episodes. We actually built an entire earlier video on the most painful version of this, the family being handed George's future in a hospital waiting room and collectively filing it in a drawer. But as a plot hole, name the mechanism. This is a sitcom's reset button, fighting a drama's memory, and the reset button kept winning right up until season 7, when the show finally let one consequence stay loaded. The sacrifice for 6 years. Cause and effect. The save. A show you could watch in any order. The cost of that save is the entire subject of this list's number 1. We're getting closer. Number 5. Meemaw's impossible resume. Connie Tucker's backstory is a filing cabinet that's been through a tornado. Fitting, honestly. Try to assemble her life from what the show states. Her age relative to Mary's. Mary's age relative to Georgie's birth. The dates implied by her marriage, her husband, her past careers, her houses, her money. The pieces are all on screen across 7 seasons, and they do not assemble. Her timeline requires her to be simultaneously younger and older than the math allows. Her finances swing from scrappy to comfortable and back as plots require. Entire chapters of her life surface exactly once, load-bearing for a single episode, and are never spoken of again. Meemaw isn't a character with a history. She's a character with a costume closet of histories, and the show reaches in and grabs whatever fits the week. Sacrifice, a coherent past. Save, the show's most reliable scene stealer, deployable in any story shape. Again, probably the right trade. Again, a hole you could drive her lost house through. If you're new here, hit subscribe, because this is what Cooper's House does. We love this show enough to read its fine print. And the top 4 is where the fine print starts confessing. Number 4. Paige, the storyline the show dropped mid-sentence. We've talked about her before, and we'll talk about her again, but on a plot hole list, she has an unbreakable reservation. Paige isn't a character the show lost track of. Paige is a storyline the show built, sharpened, aimed directly at its own premise. The gifted child without the protective family machine, the control group for the Sheldon experiment, spiraling in slow motion, and then dropped. Mid-arc. Mid-decline. Mid-sentence. That's not a fade-out like the classmates at number 9. The show invested in Paige. It gave her escalating crisis. Gave her scenes that cut deeper than anything else in its catalog, built her into the series' conscience, and then walked away from the table with the story still on it. No resolution, no rescue, no reckoning. The most honest storyline this show ever started is the one it declined to finish. Sacrifice, the show's own bravest idea. Save, and here's the uncomfortable part, the tone. A resolved Paige story has only 2 honest endings, and both of them are too dark for this show's Sunday dinner soul. The writers didn't forget her. They looked at where her road led and decided the show couldn't afford to drive there. That's the first hole on this list, where the thing sacrificed was the truth. Number 3. The 3 knocks problem. Now the canon debts come due. The franchise spent years telling you exactly why Sheldon knocks in 3s. The door, the discovery, the trauma. A memory so foundational that adult Sheldon recited it as gospel. Young Sheldon then spends seasons walking toward that locked door, and when it finally opens it, what's behind it rewrites the entire memory. We spent a whole video on what that reveal means for the marriage. Go watch it. But tonight, look at it as pure mechanics. Because you can't have both. Either the original account was true, or the new scene is true. The show's answer, that a child misread what he saw and a grown man never once questioned it, is genuinely elegant. It's also a retcon wearing elegance as a disguise. The writers were caught between a canon they inherited and a family they'd spent 7 years making us love, and they chose the family. They took the franchise's most famous origin story and quietly sanded its edges until it stopped cutting the Coopers. Sacrifice, the letter of canon. Save, George and Mary. And I want to be honest with you, I'd have made the same choice. But a chosen contradiction is still a contradiction, and this is the biggest one the show ever committed on purpose. Or rather the second biggest. Number 2. The two Sheldons cannot both exist. Here's the hole, underneath every other hole on this list. The Sheldon that this show spent 7 years lovingly building, the boy embedded in a family that fought for him, a father who quietly bent his life around him, a mother who went to war for him weekly, a twin who translated the world for him, a brother who begrudgingly protected him. That boy cannot grow into the man the wider canon describes. The man who recalled his childhood as neglect and embarrassment, the man who spoke of his father with contempt for years, the man whose whole personality was built on having survived Texas, rather than having been loved by it. Young Sheldon didn't just soften its source material, it falsified it, or the source falsified this. The two portraits are not two angles on one childhood, they are two different childhoods. Every warm scene this show ever aired digs the hole deeper, because every warm scene is one more thing the adult somehow forgot, resented, or rewrote. For 7 years, viewers treated this as the franchise's embarrassing math problem. The thing you agree not to think about. The price of admission. And that brings us to number 1. Because the biggest plot hole in Young Sheldon is the explanation for number 2, and it was never hiding. Number 1. The narrator is the plot hole. Every hole on this list, every single one, sits inside a show that is, from its first frame to its last, one man's memory. We've built 4 videos on this foundation, and here is where the foundation flips the whole building. The memoir isn't the show's framing device. It's the show's confession. Think it through. Who forgets the classmates? A man remembering his childhood forgets the classmates. Whose timeline bends, whose ages drift, whose town resizes itself around whatever mattered emotionally. Memories does. Who resets consequences, softens fights by the next scene, files the hospital in a drawer. A grieving son curating his family does. Who abandons Paige's story mid-sentence? A narrator who lost track of her the way the boy did. Who rewrites the locked door? A man who spent 30 years wrong about his father, and finally, corrected the record in the kindest available direction. And who produces a childhood that cannot coexist with the bitter one he used to describe? A man whose father died before he could say 4 words, telling the whole story again. This time, with the love turned up to where it should have been all along. Number 1 isn't a hole in the show. Number 1 is that the show is the whole. A deliberately unreliable document, narrated by a man we have watched, across an entire franchise, misremember, misjudge, and revise his own past. The inconsistencies aren't the cracks in Young Sheldon, they're the fingerprints, proof, all over every episode, of whose hands the story passed through. So here's the twist to take with you, and it reframes this entire genre of video. I promised you 10 plot holes the writers hoped you'd forget. But look at what we actually found. A town that resizes around feeling. Time that bends around emotion. Consequences that fade the way pain does. A door remembered wrong for 30 years. 2 childhoods that can't both be true, held by one man who needed the second one to be. Those aren't the errors of a careless writer's room. That's just what memory is. The show didn't hope you'd forget these holes. The show is about forgetting, and misremembering, and revising, and loving someone better in the retelling than you managed to in the room. The writers didn't hide the seams. They wrote a story out of them. So tell me honestly in the comments. And this is a genuine fork. I've gone back and forth on it myself. Is the unreliable narrator reading real, a deliberate design that turns every inconsistency into meaning? Or is it the most convenient excuse ever built, a get-out-of-continuity free card that lets a writer's room canonize its own mistakes? Design or excuse? Pick a side. Defend it. I read every single one. And drop the plot hole that personally bothers you most, even one I didn't rank. Best catch gets pinned. Stay here at Cooper's house. I'll see you in the next one.